Joe Biden has been elected the 46th president of the United States in a historic and overwhelming repudiation of Donald Trump that ended with Rudy Giuliani screaming outside a landscaping company. And now, nearly the entire Republican Party is in lockstep behind Trump as he tries to delegitimize and steal the election. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Well, our long national acid trip is almost over, and now it's time to pop a Klonopin and let our designated driver take us home. On Saturday, all the major networks finally called the presidential election for Joe Biden, and I have to say, even I'm surprised at just how relieved I am that we don't have to suffer through another 4 years of Donald Trump, the single most annoying human being on the face of the earth. Even if you put aside everything else about him, the racism, venality, cruelty, corruption, mendacity, vindictiveness, and flagrant disregard for any life other than his own, he is still just a world historically irritating man. And the most irritating thing about him was my and many people's absolute round-the-clock inability to look away. For 4 years, it has been genuinely necessary to monitor the president 24 hours a day, like zoologists staring at two endangered rhinos hoping they'll have sex. I mean, can you imagine living through another 4 years of having to see a sweaty, overcooked ham of a face on your television every day, whining about toilets not flushing or windmills killing birds, barking at reporters on his lawn like a Long Island mattress store owner who insists on doing his own commercials and putting all his weird asymmetrical adult children in them? So come on down to Oceanside Mattress and use the promo code Shut Up and Lay Down. And thank God we won't have to watch him dance at his rallies anymore like the naked guy in the gym locker room using his towel to dry the back of his neck. At this point, in addition to preserving what's left of our democracy and reversing 4 years of malicious racism, savagery, and criminal neglect, getting rid of Trump is just a quality of life issue, like calling 311 about a jackhammer outside your apartment. And clearly, I'm not the only one indulging myself in the joy and catharsis of seeing this deeply wretched husk of a man thrown out on his ass, as the results came in over the last few days, culminating with the official call from the networks on Saturday. There were celebrations across the country with people dancing in the streets, honking and banging pots in New York City, flipping off Trump's motorcade in D.C., dressing up as mailboxes in Philadelphia, and trolling Trump by blasting what has become his campaign's theme music, the YMCA song. It's just fantastic, and I love they're doing it right outside the White House. It's like playing New York outside of Fenway Park. I like to imagine that while this was happening, there was also a sad flotilla of Trump's beautiful boaters mournfully circling the waters off Clearwater Beach to a funeral dirge version of YMCA. Why, God? Why? MCA. Dancing crowds weren't the only people overjoyed by the fact that we'll soon be rid of Donald Trump. There was Joe Biden himself, who came bounding out for his victory speech like a journeyman reliever jogging out 4 years of Quaid from Total Recall. I know in one case it's the actor's name and in the other it's the character's name, but the joke is for Andy Samberg, and I'm pretty sure he's going to like it just fine. Anyway, I think we can all admit that when we were watching Biden jog out, we were silently hoping he wouldn't fall. Anytime a 77-year-old man exerts himself like that, it's a white-knuckle ride. Biden's definitely one of those grandpas who insists on doing everything himself. Grandpa, it's 5 in the morning. Where are you going? I'm going to shovel the sidewalk before my back pills wear off. And then Biden spoke for the first time as president-elect. And I mean this in the best possible way. I remember very little of it. Like, I think he said stuff about healing our divides or unifying the country or whatever. Honestly, I'm just relieved that a president-elect spoke to the nation and I didn't immediately Google Canada, how moved to. And then today, Biden announced a task force of experts who will guide him in dealing with the coronavirus pandemic, which, let's not forget, is currently ravaging the country, uncontrolled with ICUs filling up and hospitalizations nearing record levels. And yet, as the crisis was continuing to spiral, the current president was moping around his private golf course like a Palm Beach dentist after a messy divorce. That's also where Trump was when the race was called for Biden on Saturday, which is just perfect. I'm surprised he didn't just stay out there. Just leave me here. I live with the geese now. I wonder if his aides gave him the news out on the course or wait until he got back. If I were them, I'd wait until he doesn't have a golf club in his hand. Can you imagine the rage divots he left behind? It's probably why Rudy Giuliani always looks like that. He gave Trump some bad news once, and there's still a 9-iron wedged up his ass. So clearly, Biden supporters and sane people everywhere got to enjoy a well-earned national moment of catharsis as the results came in. Now let's check in on the other side and see how they're taking the news.
President Trump should not concede.
It was stolen. The media is desperately trying to get everyone to coronate Joe Biden as the next president.
I think he would have to do a lot to convince Republicans that this is anything except a left-wing power grab financed by people like George Soros. I think that it is a corrupt, stolen election.
There is no Joe Biden. The man you may remember from the 1980s is gone. He no longer exists. What remains is a projection of sorts, a hologram designed to mimic the behavior of a non-threatening political candidate. These people seek absolute sameness, total uniformity. You're happy with your corner coffee shop. They want to make you drink Starbucks every day from now until forever, no matter how it tastes.
And when that hologram drinks coffee, what do you think happens? Splashes right to the ground. Because holograms don't have real stomachs. All right, so based on the clips, they're not doing great. Tucker Carlson thinks Joe Biden is a hologram, wants to make you drink Starbucks every day. And I'm sorry, but when is the Starbucks for liberals myth gonna die? Are we supposed to believe Tucker only drinks campfire coffee out of a prospector's tin mug? And by the way, to anyone who thought things were going to go back to normal once Trump is gone, just a reminder, Fox News called Biden a hologram who wants to force you to drink Starbucks. Republicans hang on to control the Senate. Who knows if they'll even let him have a cabinet? Sean Hannity will probably accuse Biden of building a secret Soros-funded Amtrak station on the moon. But you know what? Say what you will about Republicans. One thing they made clear is they're tough guys who don't cry like liberals. So if anyone can handle a bruising emotional defeat like this one, it's the Republican Party.
This is one of the things I'm just... Give people time.
Yes.
I mean, he's just found out that he's, probably not going to be the president of the United States here. And I mean, you could say what was in the cards, but you don't know until the votes are counted.
I believe in decency in all matters. And I think the decent thing to do is let the president himself take the time he wants to absorb this. It is not easy. It is extraordinarily close. So if the president needs to take a few days, maybe even longer, to absorb, ultimately accept, and I think he ultimately will accept the outcome of the people, you have to allow that to happen.
Truly incredible. The liberal tears crowd, the people who spent 4 years building an entire political movement around triggering their political opponents need a warm blanket and a cup of Earl Grey tea to cope with losing a presidential election. They literally wore shirts that said, your feelings. Yes, your feelings, but my feelings, you may love. To my feelings. This isn't just a case of hurt feelings or wounded egos. This is the beating heart of Trumpism, the paranoid, authoritarian belief that your political opponents are illegitimate. And even though Trump himself might be on his way out, the deep rot that the rise is exposed within our political system isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and we can't pretend otherwise. It runs through the veins of the Republican Party, which is why Trump was thoroughly and overwhelmingly repudiated. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won the most votes for any presidential ticket ever, and by one of the largest margins in recent history, on pace to potentially win over 300 electoral votes. Meanwhile, Trump is the only president in history to be impeached, lose the popular vote, and be denied a second term. He's going to be the answer to a trivia question for the rest of his life. Oh man, I know this one. Guy used to... His name was on buildings. Golf guy. I knew I shouldn't have gotten stoned before trivia night. Again, Trump is not unique. For example, last night he retweeted a clip from Fox News in which Ken Starr, the special prosecutor from the Clinton impeachment, suggested that counting votes was itself illegal.
To count every vote may be a crime. It may even be a crime under federal law. It's definitely a crime under state law if that is, and here's the key word, illegal. Well, and that's why you see, and it's shameful that Vice President Biden's people and the Vice President himself are saying count every vote and selling a lot of T-shirts.
Okay, putting aside everything else for a second, you're mad that they're selling T-shirts? All Trump does is sell and advertise Trump-branded products. The entire Trump campaign is like the merch table outside a concert. They have hats, shirts, cups, flags. There's even an official Trump-Pence pet leash, which just seems way too on the nose. Mr. President, I would prefer if we didn't have the leash on the website. Oh, I hear you, Mike. But I appreciate Ken Starr revealing the ideological core of the Republican Party, their fundamental belief that counting every vote is a crime. They believe the democratic process is illegitimate. That's why they're manufacturing deranged fantasies of systemic voter fraud without evidence. Even when pressed for evidence, they can't provide any.
I know this city has a sad history of voter fraud. After all, Joe Frazier is still voting here. Kind of hard since he died 5 years ago, but Joe continues to vote. If I recall correctly, Joe was a Republican, so maybe I shouldn't complain. But we should go see if Joe is voting Republican or Democrat now from the grave. In Philadelphia, they keep the votes of dead people secret.
Anytime Rudy does a press conference, I half expect him to be trailed by an IV stand and a nurse holding a little cup full of pills. One of these days is going to be interrupted halfway through by an orderly yelling, Rudy! There you are! Free time is always lights out at 8, Rudy! I'll make some very good points. Can I finish making they're very good points? It's crazier though, because that's the same press conference where Rudy found out the networks had all called the race for Trump, and this was his response.
Who was it called by? Oh my goodness, all the networks. Wow. All the networks!
You know, Rudy doesn't think it's official until it's called by the Texaco Star Theater. Sounds like he's on the phone with Time Warner customer service. All right, sir, we have several packages available. Which channels would you like?
All the networks!
But by far the best thing about this press conference was not what Rudy said, but where he said it. It brings us to the absolutely top part of the weekend. Honestly, it was almost as good as Trump losing. You see, the way we found out about this press conference was when Trump tweeted, "Lawyers News Conference, Four Seasons, Philadelphia, 11 a.m. Then he deleted that tweet and followed up with another that said, "Big press conference today in Philadelphia at Four Seasons, total landscaping, 11:30 a.m. So everyone thought they were holding a press conference at the upscale Four Seasons Hotel, and it turned out they were holding it at a landscaping company called Four Seasons Total Landscaping, and the hotel itself announced they had no connection to either Trump or the landscaping company. It's like if Trump announced he was holding a big rally at the Lincoln Memorial, deleted it, then announced he was holding a big rally at a Lincoln dealership. So how did this absolutely incredible moment in history happen? The Trump team was reportedly looking for a friendly part of town to hold a press conference where they wouldn't get drowned out by Biden supporters, but according to the New York Times, aides told the president on Saturday morning their intended location for the news conference, and he misunderstood, assuming it was an upscale hotel. But I think it was even dumber. I think Trump said, "Do it at the Four Seasons," and one of his chucklehead henchmen just glanced at the Philly phone book, saw Four Seasons, dialed the number before he saw Total Landscaping, and they just rolled with it because nobody could admit a mistake in that fake macho basement cult. It's just the best. He thought he was getting a fancy hotel, and instead, he got a landscaping company. So he tells me this isn't the first time this has happened to Rudy. If you've ever seen him sleeping in a Courtyard, it's because he thought he was booking a room at Courtyard by Marriott. These benches are so comfortable. Better, once you learn what else was near the landscaping company, again, this is where the president's lawyer held an official press conference falsely alleging a scheme of wide-scale voter fraud in order to undermine an election.
Originally, the president billed this press conference as taking place at the Four Seasons Hotel in downtown Philadelphia. But it actually ended up being held in the back of Four Seasons Total Landscaping, no relation to the hotel, very far from the center of Philadelphia, next to Fantasy Island Adult Books, across from the Delaware Valley Cremation Center.
That's right, they held a press conference at a landscaping company next to an adult bookstore and a cremation center. So it was one-stop shopping for Rudy. This is great. I get my hedges trimmed, pick up a porno mag, and then get cremated. I can't wait to pick out my urn! The only thing missing from this scene was a story called "Metaphors Are Us." Such a fitting way for the Trump presidency to end. They tried to stage a deranged press conference to undermine our democracy, and it ended in a humiliating spectacle brought on by their own incompetence. 5 years ago, this whole nightmare started in a Golden Tower in Manhattan. Now it's ending at a landscaping company in Philadelphia. And yet Rudy is not an outlier. Today's Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to accept the outcome of the election as well, despite the clear results with no evidence of fraud whatsoever. The president and virtually the entire Republican Party are engaged in an attempt to delegitimize the election and blow up our democracy. Clearly, the deep rot in our political system and the conservative movement exposed by Trump's rise is not going away anytime soon. He is not unique, and fixing that will require bold, systemic change. So we'll be watching on this network and on
all the networks.
This has been A Closer Look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses. And they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask. We love you.